So I'm one of those guys that, I was 2 years old when the moon landing happened, and I think it was one of the greatest experiences in mankind. But yet, up to this day, thanks to a movie called Capricorn 1, suddenly people are saying, well, the moon landings don't exist. Well, I got a guest from the trailer park, Mr. Hadrick Ayaminut, who literally says that the moon landings cannot exist because why now? Thank you for having me on here. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. You see, the moon landings don't exist because the moon doesn't exist. The moon is just a holographic image that's off the atmosphere. Let me explain. Okay, we have to go all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia and Babylon, where the Atlanteans were first created. Now the Atlanteans are actually a group of Mesopotamians and Babylonians that traveled both to Egypt and then across to Mexico. And they created the pyramids, which designed a holographic image of the moon. And the reason they did that was to keep their people in control through, the beliefs of false deities. Okay. Wait, I'm trying to understand this. So you're saying that the moon is some sort of a holographic image that's bouncing off the sky, like a big old spotlight? I mean, come on. I mean, how can you say that, like, the pyramids are a holographic projector? Now, these people were absolute super geniuses with IQs of maybe like 300 or more, using almost 50% of their brain when they designed these holographic emitters all through these pyramids. I mean, how can you not explain pyramids not only in Egypt, but in Mexico and South America? The simple answer is they're holographic projectors projecting the moon onto the atmosphere. Atlanteans. Why not the Illuminati? I mean, I don't get it. Actually, the Atlanteans are the precursor organization to the Illuminati, which, the Rothschilds are associated with. This is why you have the dollar bill with the pyramid and the all-seeing eye, because the money was created by the Rothschilds as a form of control. Wait. Money was not created by the Illuminati. I mean, you're starting to get way out there. I mean, money was invented long before that. No. I'm using this as a better understanding for you, because, I do understand that money was created earlier, but money, of course, was created by the ancient Babylonians, which, of course, turned into the ancient Mesopotamians, which turned into Wait a minute. The Babylonians? I thought we were talking about the Mesopotamians. Well, the Babylonians came first, because they evolved into the Mesopotamians. And as their empire grew and grew, of course, their empire grew because of superior intelligence, and that even we can't comprehend. Okay, so what does this have to do with, like, the Rothschilds? The Rothschilds made a drastic mistake when they created World War I. And, of course, we all know what happened with World War I. Adolf Hitler was in that first war. He saw things that didn't make sense. He questioned things. And that's where we come into the state of Israel. Okay, so let me get this straight. We're talking about the Rothschilds, the Hitler, Israel. How does this have to do with, like, the moon being projected into space? I don't get it. Well, you see, in order for the Atlanteans to come for the average human with low intelligence and control them, they created monotheistic religion. They did the same thing as they did back when they had the plural theistic religion, where they made the holographic emitters that projected the moon, which made all those lesser intelligences believe, yes, we're not alone out there. There's all these gods, all these planets, and we're slowly going, well, wait a minute. Aren't we masters of our own destiny? And they started creating all these monotheistic religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism. All these religions were tailor-made for the geographic mindset of the time. All right, let me get this right. So, because I'm not getting this. Well, let's actually fast forward to World War I, because what the Rothschilds were trying to do is they were trying to put the Atlantean people in power, in leadership positions. So that's why the Tsar of Russia was assassinated. That's why all of a sudden all these monarchical countries all of a sudden had some sort of democracy behind them. George Washington was a Mason, and a Mason is an offshoot of the Illuminati. It's a sub-organization, so to speak. Okay, so we go from plural theistic religions. All of a sudden we have to go to monotheistic religions because nobody's believing the moon exists or something like that. So, of course, after World War I, we found out that Hitler actually seen the truth about the Illuminati, the Masons, monotheistic religion, and all this other sort of stuff. And he was able to have Germany convinced into electing him because Germany was the weak link in the whole master plan of the Rothschilds. All right. Wait a minute. Let's get to this whole thing about Hitler and all this. You obviously have a connection with Hitler and the moon for some reason, which is utter lunacy. I'm getting to that. Because somewhere around 1935, Hitler sent Erwin Rommel, who was still not in the military, as an archaeologist to study the pyramids of Egypt. And many know that Rommel was an archaeologist, or at least claimed to be an archaeologist, because he was an archaeologist. And when Rommel discovered the pyramids did give off holographic projection, that's when the Rothschilds got wise to what was going on, and they started conspiring with the rest of the world leaders to bribe Hitler into giving him country after country as a concession if he would keep his mouth shut. And of course, you know, because of Israel and the Judaists who were of course, you know, a format of the Illuminati, they were trying to also control Hitler, but Hitler was like, no. All right, so wait a minute. Hitler's big land grab where he took back the Rhineland, he walked into Czechoslovakia, he did all these things were Illuminati concessions in order to keep Hitler quiet about these holographic projectors? Okay, wait a minute. Everybody was on board on this? I mean, come on. Oh, Russia was also on board. England was on board. France was on board. Everyone was on board except, you know, Japan, because, you know, of their samurai, their samurai mentality, and, you know, their whole Bushido code that they had created. They had gone off the deep end. And then, you know, there was Italy, but, you know, Italy had Mussolini, who the Atlanteans had controlled and the Masons controlled, but Mussolini was a little more of a radical Atlantean. But this is also why Italy was so bad in World War II. It was because they were kind of forced into joining Germany because, you know, Mussolini was trying all this stuff. And he, you know, he came up with this different plan on how to keep Germany out. And it was the fact of taking over Egypt, Italy taking over Egypt, controlling the pyramids, to keep the secret hidden. Unfortunately for the manufactured crisis of the Depression, Italy was at a big disadvantage in military might, and around 1940, Chamberlain, who was, a tool of the Atlanteans and the Masons and the Illuminati, made a concession to Italy, saying, "Hey, let's just start this war. We'll keep control of Egypt. We'll keep the secret of the projector safe better. You know, you just work your way in to kind of help Germany lose by being like pathetic." Okay, so when Italy joined the Axis powers, they were actually conceding to England because what Chamberlain or Winston Churchill or whoever was in charge at the time said, yeah, we'll just keep the pyramids safe because we've been doing it for years. And okay, and that's how World War II in Europe started. I mean, come on, World War II in Europe started because Hitler invaded Poland. Well, no. Actually, World War II in Europe started because Poland, who was one of the storehouses for the Illuminati, they hid a lot of the secrets. I mean, we've heard of the Bell, which was supposed to be this secret German anti-gravity technology, which wasn't secret German anti-gravity technology. It was actually Illuminati technology. This is also why Japan joined the Axis powers, because when the German ambassadors started explaining to them about this whole shadow government of the Illuminati and the Masons and all this, and Japan was close to the truth as it was going into Manchuria. The biggest problem is one of the biggest Masons, Franklin Roosevelt, was planning to start a full-scale assault on Japan. And that's why Japan had to do the first strike initiative at Pearl Harbor. Okay, so the only people that started believing this was Japan. Okay, so you got Japan and Germany going, hey, there's this big Illuminati conspiracy theory that the moon doesn't exist. No. Now, during this time, of course, the Illuminati gifted both the United States and Russia with the technology to create an atomic bomb. And the idea behind the atomic bomb is the blast is actually a byproduct. It's the radiation which keeps our minds dull and slow and low and actually works like a hallucinogen. This is why, in the 1950s and the 1960s, the U.S. and Russia and then, finally China, and, they just started blowing up all these bombs everywhere. And, they used Nevada and the Baikal Lake or wherever the Russians did this because, of the airstream, of course. All right. So if I'm hearing this right, the atomic bombings on Japan was to create a reinforced mass hallucinogen that the moon existed. Okay. I'm getting that. So during the 1940s, because of this whole holographic projection on the atmosphere of the moon and the space and other sort of stuff, the Germans had enlisted the help of Dr. Werner von Braun. Now, he was the German rocket scientist, and he was to make tests into space flight. And that's where he developed the V-2 rocket. Now, the V-1 was just basically a German distraction in order to keep England at bay from the V-2 space program. Okay? And unfortunately, the V-2 couldn't penetrate the atmosphere. So it'd go up the atmosphere, it'd bounce off, it'd land on England, it'd land, in Poland or Russia or wherever. Because the atmosphere is basically, it's a shield. It's a shield. Nothing can get out of it. That's how the air and everything, stays in. That's why the sky is blue, because it's a shield. It's impenetrable by anything going out or coming in. This is why meteors and things burn up, because it hits that shield and it just explodes. So von Braun basically found out that, the atmosphere is a big projection. Okay, so the V-2 rocket was designed to go into space and prove that Germany cannot into space. Right. This also explains the Tehran conference. Where's Tehran? Iran. What? It was Iran before it was Iran. It was Persia. What was Persia before it was Persia? Mesopotamia. They had to discuss the bomb hallucinogenics and the effects of it. All these people that, the members, all this, they were high-ranking members of the Illuminati. And so, that's why they used the idea of the radiation to go through the above-ground bomb test, distract the people of the world. And, of course, Operation Paperclip. Paperclip was just a plan for both Russia and the United States to capture all these German scientists to keep them quiet. Von Braun was like, no, I want to keep doing my rocket experiments. I want to see if we can break the atmosphere. And, Kennedy was on board. That's why Kennedy was assassinated. Okay, but Yuri Gagarin went into space. He was the first man in space. You got Gagarin, you got Sputnik, you got Explorer 1. You've got, the magnificent American 7. I mean, these people went in there. You got the Gemini program. How can you explain Soyuz, Yuri Gagarin, the first man supposedly in space, mysteriously dying after, going on this world tour about talking about spaceflight? He made too many mistakes about what he was doing, and he had to be taken out. Now, the United States, they were a lot more complicit, and that's because, Von Braun, he explained to the Masons that, he wanted to try and pierce the atmosphere. He didn't care that the moon was, some invisible projection. Fine, okay, yeah, sure, we'll send people to the moon. We'll also prove the moon we won't prove the moon doesn't exist. We'll figure that out. We'll talk to Stanley Kubrick. He'll make a model of the moon. We'll fake the moon landing altogether in some studio out in Area 51. I mean, look at the first flights of America. Look at Alan Shepard. Alan Shepard didn't get into space. Scott Crossfield, the guy who flew the X-15 farther and higher than anybody else, he didn't press the atmosphere. Neither one of them pressed the atmosphere because the atmosphere is a shield. The Russian moon rocket disaster. It's because it hit the shield and exploded at the shield. It's impossible. And so things like the Russian moon probe, all these things were just like fake. Oh wait, no, I have more, because people are getting wise to the fact that the nation in space travel and all the connections are starting, find their way through the cracks, because we might be of lower intelligence, but we're not stupid. Yeah, but now you got all these private companies. You've got SpaceX. You've got Virgin Atlantic. You've got all these private companies that are actually sending things into space. Right. Before Donald Trump, what do we have? We have Virgin Atlantic. We have Red Bull. We have all these little outside organizations that are now trying to bust into space, which is impossible. Everything's been a suborbital flight because they can't break the atmosphere, so they can only go suborbit. Okay, please explain to me Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and SpaceX and Tesla and all this, because now this is getting really interesting. No, to keep this million-year secret, the Rothschilds decided we're going to fund Donald Trump as a president. We're going to make him president. Look, Trump went bankrupt how many times? All of a sudden he's got all this campaign money. The Rothschilds, the Illuminati, the Masons, the Atlanteans. So anyways, they wanted him to work with Vladimir Putin. They're going to create this completely make-believe world war in the Ukraine. There is no war in the Ukraine. There's no war going on there. I've seen the Instagram posts. There's no war in Ukraine. There's a Ukraine nightlife. People are walking around, they're happy, they're fine, they're going disco dancing. There's no war. There's the proof. It's all false propaganda, and it's created by AI and a very compliant media arm of the Illuminati, the CIA, the FSB. This is all a well-orchestrated, mass hypnotic trick, and it's being used by the residual radiation of the A-bombs that have been, tested in theory. But that's also why there's an actual war between Israel and Palestine, because the Israelis have found out that the Jewish religion is false. It's fake. It was manufactured by the Illuminati, and that's because it was manufactured by the Illuminati. They're going straight up, go ahead and take this false religion as their own. So the Jews are now actually Jews, and they're striking back at their creators. Where are they striking? Iran. And again, where's Iran? Babylonia. Babylon. You see, it's all coming together. Do you understand? Oh, Elon Musk? Oh, he's one of those really high-ranking Masons that's basically in the Western arm of the Illuminati. He's trying to groom Trump. And Trump had to lose the election for 4 years because, and they had to replace him with somebody. They had to replace him with Joe Biden. And unfortunately, Joe Biden died shortly after the inauguration by anti-Illuminati agents. But this was easily fixed because Elon Musk had created a robot. Biden is a robot. I would think Al Gore was more of a robot. That basically was Joe Biden. That's why Joe Biden had all those gaffes and problems, because he's a robot. This is why there's an auto pen scandal going on, because he's a robot, and robots can use auto pens. I mean, look at the videos of him walking. He walks exactly like the robot, because they had to re-groom Trump to continue this deception of war, and this deception of compliance to the overlords of the Illuminati. And all this has been created just to prove that the moon does not exist. And then, the moon does not exist. Like, I mean, this Kennedy is a wild and Khrushchev, and they started the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was supposed to do a lot more above ground radiation, because you had the protests against the Vietnam War, which again was not a real war. There was no war in Vietnam. This was just a mass hallucinogenic effect. But because of the protests, everybody was starting to realize, hey, something here is not right. But beforehand, when they started the Vietnam War, and people were just not complying to this. They weren't believing that there was a war in Vietnam. Why are we in Vietnam? Vietnam was supposed to be another one of those hallucinogenic distractions by the above ground nuclear tests. But because Kennedy and Khrushchev were too worried about all these mass atomic bombings, which was going to work with this mind-numbing radiation, Khrushchev was ousted of office by Brezhnev. Kennedy was assassinated. And, they were replaced by more compliant Masons. Brezhnev, LBJ, and these were Masons. LBJ was a Mason. Brezhnev, he was an Atlantean. All right, so let me get this straight. World War II was
created to hide the fact the moon doesn't exist. The Ukraine war is a manufactured AI mass hallucination. The only real war is Israel attacking Iran. All this just to hide the fact the moon doesn't exist. And that somehow space, we're living in like this giant floating snow globe in the middle of nothing.
Oh no, it's not just hiding the moon and the technology. We're talking bigger things here. The war in Iraq, 9/11, hentai, multiple gender, age ideology, the trans movement, climate change, space aliens, Area 51, the Epstein list, fluoride, and even the fact that Roman Stepanov is not making videos is all tied into the fact that the moon is not real. And we need to be distracted because of it. Yeah!
Okay, so this has been an interview with Mr. Hadrick Amenet. And now I am going to go back to bed, and that is after I get extremely drunk.
Друзья, I almost forgot. There's 2 links down here. One is to my Telegram channel, the Fallout Shelter. Join, let's talk when I can. The other thing is, also on the bottom is a list of things that I would love to get on Amazon if, and I do say if, you can mail me stuff on Amazon. I don't know. And finally, at the bottom, if you don't have Amazon and you still want to mail me some cool stuff, at the bottom is my P.O. Box, which means you can send me stuff. Send me stuff, but not a lot of stuff because I don't have a lot of room. I still have to look at the button.